What's up, friends? Welcome to another episode of Auto Afflicted. As ever, I'm your host, Ali Goulet, and today we're going through how to install some gauges onto this now Turbo Benz. This is like, I don't know, part 5 at this point. So part 1 was all of the items that I bought for the car, for the turbo, and links to where you can find all of those. Part 2 was installing the intercooler in the front of the bumper. And part 3 was actually installing the turbo and starting the car. Definitely worth checking out. Part 4 was the full exhaust all the way out. That's a cool episode. And here we are, I guess this is part 5, installation of the gauges. Let's get into it. Right, so gauge install for the Turbo Benz. I'm pretty particular with how I do things. I'm kind of come from a less is more philosophy, and so I don't want A-pillar gauges. I considered putting my gauges in the center console area. There wasn't really enough room. The center vent area is really a great place for the gauges, but I didn't want to eliminate the usage of those vents. So what I've decided is to put all of the gauges in the lower dash zone by my knees on the driver's side. So I'm putting boost over on the right. I've got fuel pressure on the left next to the air fuel mixture. They're not the easiest to see in this location, but they're still in a good location where I can see them. I can monitor them myself as the driver, and they're not going to affect my vents, and it's going to be pretty clean. So I'm going to run you through how all of this goes, and hopefully it's nice and clean. Let's check it out. So as you can see, we're looking at the gauges already fully installed, and now I'm going to show you how we got there. So you're going to need 8mm socket, I believe, and a Phillips head, and then you need to get these things off. So your lights switch just pops off. You unscrew this little bezel in here. This one's already only finger tight because that's kind of just how I have it. And then it pops off here to reveal these 8mm under here. I'm not going to take this all off for you. It's really pretty simple, easy deal. And then of course you're going to have to disconnect the cable from your parking brake handle, disconnect the hood release, and then you've got a few bolts here, a few here on this side, and you got a couple down under here. So once you get all the bolts pulled out and the screws, this just drops down really pretty easy, and you can start going to work on it. Goes back together just the exact same way, of course. As you can see on the back side of this knee dash piece here, it's all just foam, and then there's a thin bit of metal. So this part here is metal, and then obviously you've got your interior finish here. So we're just gonna take it easy and cut through this stuff once I get it all marked up. This is an adapter, obviously, that pitches the gauges up, faces them up a little bit, so they're a little more visible. And I've gone ahead and I've drawn a level line, obviously, across here, so I have some reference, so my gauges look nice and consistent. And then as you can see in the car here, right, we got the dash out, lower dash, and sure, the vents are a great spot, but vents are kind of important, and so ultimately we're gonna have these gauges down here. You're kind of just gonna see them through the steering wheel, but they'll still be there for diagnostic, and it'll be kind of clean and out of the way. Got myself a nice hole saw up to the specification of the gauges, which will allow me to get those in there. So I got my gauge zones all marked out. I'm ready to start doing some drilling. I'm gonna put some tape on this stuff so that it doesn't tear up the exterior and leave that looking crappy. We're getting a bit more technical here with some actual tools for finding the center of these holes. And then I'm gonna go ahead and cut these with a razor blade rather than going straight to this thing. You gotta be careful with your vinyl. So I drilled a couple pilot holes here. On this side, it was no problem, but on this side, as you can see, the metal is actually got some shape to it. And so I have to get in here and get another center line. So first hole went pretty good, just took my time. And over here, for these other two holes, I did pre-cut the vinyl and then I'm gonna go ahead and put some tape over it. All right, so this is what it looks like after the carnage. Just like foam and whatever everywhere. This tape though, the tape is what makes the difference. Because like you saw when I did my bumper, if you don't use the tape, you can end up with some paint or vinyl or whatever ripped. But you see the little pre-cut, and with some tape, the vinyl is preserved pretty clean. This is really beautiful, right? I just picked away at that because really what I need is space back here and no one's gonna see it. Do I need to cut it and make it like pristine? No. But something to note is that once you get your holes, you do have to ovalize them a little bit so that the gauges can sit in at an angle. So as you can see, this bezel to kick it up goes in, and you have to have the freedom of movement for your gauge itself. So that's been ovalized a bit so it has that clearance. Autometer does provide instructions with these adjustable bezels and a template so you can cut. I don't know where my other one is. There's a template so you can cut your brackets. So this bracket comes full size, and then it's cut at that angle. So ultimately it sits in there. It sits in there at an angle, and that allows the gauge to be kicked up. Okay, you can see all tightened up basically back here, and it's sitting really pretty flush. As it compresses a little more, it's going to be a little more flush in there. But see, that's looking nice. And it kicks it up a bit so that I'll be able to see it properly instead of having it aimed down toward the floor. So now I'm gonna go ahead and modify the other two holes on the left side over here and get those gauges in. So here we go. I got these other two in there, a little modification, a little grinding, a little patience. And as you can see, looking pretty nice on the front side here, pretty flush. These will set in a bit more over time. Here you can see how I've got the fuel pressure sender plumbed in. So you do have right here, this is a test port for testing fuel pressure. And I got this little adapter piece. That adapter piece is a 1/8 NPT to M8 with a one thread, I believe, machine thread. I'll put a link in the description to that exact piece, but that's what I needed to mate up to the Autometer fuel pressure sender. And then as you can see, I've got the sender line running up here, and then it goes in and connects to the gauge in there. I'm not going to go over all the wiring and stuff like that, because wiring, it's really pretty simple, and your gauges will have instructions on how to wire, but there it is. You'll find here on the fuel line, I did have to massage this fuel line away this way toward the front of the car a little bit, just to get a little more clearance so that I could get the sensor in here properly and get a wrench on it. I actually tightened these two pieces together off the car and then just screwed into this piece. It was a little bit simpler that way. This is our boost line, of course, so we teed in right off the intake manifold, so we can get boost pressure from the manifold, and then that runs through the firewall there and just comes up here past the brake booster, and it follows into the cockpit along with the fuel pressure sensor wires right there. So pretty clean and easy, really. So there we go. Gauges are operational. Something to note is that I think my O2 sensor got fouled and I need a new one. I had a super old one, probably the original, and so my sensor gauge isn't working currently for the air fuel mixture, but I did get the mixture right on the dyno tune, so we're all set there. All right, so there you go, friends. Another successful mission. We got the gauges in, we got the wires in. Now we've got everything we need to make sure we can keep an eye on what this engine's doing, and that way we're not burning up any pistons, we're not running lean on fuel. All these gauges are just really important. So super happy with how it came together. As always, I appreciate you guys all checking it out. Remember, there's a full series on this. Starts with all the parts and all that, and I've linked everything in the description of, you know, either the first video, second, third, fourth, whatever it is. So all the information is here for you. Happy to do it for you guys. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions on any of this stuff. Happy to help. So if you appreciated this video and it was helpful to you, drop a like on it. Even if it wasn't helpful, maybe drop a like on it. If you want to subscribe, you know, that's huge for me, and I would really appreciate it. As ever, you know, love the ones you're with, be kind to your neighbors, use your signals when you're driving, and we'll catch you on the next one.